Spring 2024 at Terry Parker High. Terry Parker High School, servicing grades 9 through 12 with an overall C average and a teacher-student ratio of 74 to 1,353. The current environment, the ESC teacher pops in and out of the gen ed classroom, providing scaffolding assistance. Current demographic information for Terry Parker High: 100% of students are economically disadvantaged. 16.2% are current English language learners. 14.7% are students with disabilities. 2.4% of students are homeless, and 2.7% of students are in military families. The current class is Algebra 1. So upon my initial observation of general classroom activity, the first thing that stuck out to me was the sheer number of off-task students. Only approximately 20% of students were on task. Approximately 15% were sleeping. Approximately 35% were on personal electronic devices, such as cell phones or tablets, and approximately 30% were socializing with peers. Informal teacher interviews. In speaking with the gen ed teacher, some major contributors to low grades in class are low attendance, missing assignments, and sleeping in class. General classroom engagement is low and off-task behavior is high, regularly reaching 75+% of the classroom population. In speaking with my mentor teacher, the ESE teacher, her observations are concurrent with those of the gen ed teacher, although she has noted higher levels of engagement and higher attendance earlier in the academic year, declining with increasing complexity of the lessons and the topics discussed in class. So where to start? In teaching mathematics meaningfully, some of the strategies listed for teaching struggling learners are determining the specific needs of a learner, making instructional decisions that are data-based and student-centered, and providing several opportunities for student responses with feedback. And these strategies, along with many others, rely on student engagement. No lesson can live up to its full potential unless the classroom is engaged. So what are the barriers to engagement in high school mathematics, and how can we as educators tackle those barriers? My small group development. In speaking with my mentor teacher, there was an Algebra 1 class struggling a little bit more than the other ones. And some of the ESC students in that class had specifically declined invitation to small group or had explicitly expressed the desire to remain off task. So I pulled the remaining 4 ESC students for the small group. In addition to those 4, 3 gen ed students who were requesting remediation were pulled as well, leaving me with a final group size of 7 students. Data collection. In teaching students with emotional and behavioral disabilities, the authors discuss using an array of response forms to increase response frequency. The small group will be utilizing written responses, verbal responses, and action responses, all of which will be noted as participation. To monitor these students' engagement, notes will be kept throughout the process to monitor engagement in the following categories. Percentages of students who are asleep in class, percentage of students awake but not taking notes or participating, percentage of students taking notes but not participating, and percentage of students both taking notes and participating. For the purposes of data collection, participation is defined by at least one written, verbal, or action response. Taking general class notes alone does not satisfy the functional definition of participation within this context. Why is classroom engagement so low? When not in the classroom, surrounded by their peers, many students were readily willing to volunteer the information that they felt overwhelmed by the materials and actually had a desire for more detailed and perhaps slower paced instruction. A lot of students had intensive responsibilities at home that affected the amount of sleep they could get, their self-care. Some students had siblings at home, nieces, nephews that they were partially responsible uh, for taking care of. Some students had long employed work hours or were working multiple gigs because they had significant financial responsibilities or expectations at home. And some students were lacking motivation because they felt the subject material wasn't practical. Implemented strategies. Task analysis. So the students themselves were requesting more detailed instruction. So I gave it to them. Gradual release of instruction. I would start by modeling a problem on the board on my own, step by step. And I would partially model the next one, prompting for student response, and then I would transition from there, scaffolding along the way to independent student responses and independent student problem solving. I also incorporated color coding. One common problem I was hearing amongst students was, well, I see they pulled that number, but where did it come from? Where did that two over there come from? I don't understand. So to help bridge those gaps and understand what we're putting where, and to help visually organize the information and make it more digestible, I incorporated several different uh, colors, and you can see task analysis and the color coding coming in handy with these beautiful student notes that we have over here. I have a Skittles icebreaker. The first day of small group, I did an icebreaker in which a random handful of Skittles was distributed to each student, and each color corresponded with a category of fun fact the student was to share about his or herself. I had favorite color, favorite food, inside activity, outside activity, player's choice, and I asked them about their pet peeves. For the candy warm up, at the beginning of the warm up, I would display a bucket of small pieces of candy with the announcement that they would be distributed upon effort and participation. If they gave me an answer and it was well thought out and showed that they were paying attention, even if it wasn't entirely correct, that would still be rewarded, and we would use that response as a building block towards the final answer. For my candy bowl, that was a free access bowl of mints and cinnamon candies that was placed in student view that anyone could grab as they needed. If they felt themselves dozing off, they could grab a mint, grab a cinnamon candy to help bring them back to the present. It also gave something tangible to offer during student redirection back to task to give a little bit of that sensory input. My student engagement levels. March 26th was my diagnostic and candy icebreaker. I had no students sleeping that day. Not even one. Everyone was fully engaged, nice and attentive. That day, March 28th, using was a lesson day using task analysis and gradual release of instruction. Now we can see I had 25% of students sleep, 25% taking notes only, and 50% fully participating. So that was getting me higher on task behavior than the 20-25% we started with. Not quite what I wanted. April 2nd, I added in color coding. Now I have about 55% full participation, but 30% sleeping, and about 14% awake, only not engaged. So April 4th is when I shook it up with our candy warm up. And I have an 84% rate of full participation here, but I still have that 14%, that one student who was still sleeping. So on April 9th, I incorporated the candy bowl, the free access candy bowl with the mints and cinnamon candies, and I finally got that beautiful 100% full participation. I carried on the same technique with the candy bowl, in addition to the previously used task analysis, gradual release of instruction, and our color coding. And it continued to do very well. On the 16th of April, I added in written instructions on the board, which did not increase frequency of participation, but did increase speed of participation. On the 18th, we had a little bit of a dip for extenuating circumstances. There was an incident in the cafeteria at the school that day, a little bit of an off day to be expected. Nothing is going to be 100% all the time. So overall, when focusing only on the academic portion of the lesson, I couldn't reach any higher than that 86%, leaving that 14% behind. It wasn't until after I started adding in those strategies for low student energy levels and sleep quality, that's when I started seeing that 100%. When I started adding in that free access candy bowl is when I started getting that 100%. In conclusion, uh, to tackle the issue of student engagement, a variety of strategies must be implemented, focused not only on the academic portion of the lessons, but also the personal side of how those lessons come across to the students. My preferences. Thank you so much.